Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are listening from, I want you to pause for a moment and think about this. How many times have you stayed awake at night, replaying conversations in your head, worrying about what could go wrong, or thinking, did I say the right thing? Maybe you've spent hours, days, even weeks overthinking situations that, in reality, were far simpler than your mind made them. I want you to imagine a life where overthinking doesn't control you, a life where you make decisions with confidence, clarity, and calm. Today, I'm going to show you how to master one skill, one mindset that, once you embrace it, you will never overthink again. Have you ever noticed how your mind can start racing at the most random moments? Maybe you're sitting at a traffic light, waiting for it to turn green, and suddenly you're imagining every possible thing that could go wrong in your life. Maybe it's a work deadline that hasn't even arrived yet, or a conversation you had weeks ago that you keep replaying like a broken record. Most people don't realize this is the very beginning of overthinking. It's subtle, almost invisible, until one day you find yourself exhausted, overwhelmed, and confused, wondering why your mind never stops. This is where awareness steps in. Awareness is the single most powerful tool you have to stop overthinking before it consumes your life. Awareness is noticing the moment your mind begins its spiraling dance and saying, wait a second, what am I really doing here? Imagine you're at the kitchen counter, chopping vegetables for dinner. Your mind starts running wild. What if I said the wrong thing to my boss this morning? What if I fail at that project next week? What if people stop liking me? Now, at first glance, these thoughts feel harmless. They feel almost normal. But if you don't catch them, they will grow, twisting and multiplying, creating fear and doubt that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. Pausing in that exact moment and acknowledging, oh, my mind is spinning again, is the very first step to taking control. Awareness is not judgment. It's not beating yourself up for having these thoughts. It's recognizing them like clouds passing through the sky. You see them, you name them, and then you decide if they deserve your energy or if they're just illusions your mind is creating. Think of a child learning to ride a bicycle. At first, they wobble, they fall, they're scared. But the moment they notice their own balance, the moment they realize, oh, I can adjust my weight, I can steer, everything changes. Awareness is that moment on the bike when you suddenly realize you are capable of steering your life instead of letting your thoughts steer you. Let me give you another example from daily life. Imagine you're scrolling through social media and you stumble upon a post that triggers a comparison. Immediately, your mind starts, why am I not as successful as them? Why don't I have what they have? In less than a minute, your happiness is gone. This is the exact moment awareness can save you. Instead of letting your thoughts consume you, you can pause and ask, is this thought serving me? Or am I just imagining problems that don't exist? That simple question, asked with sincerity, is like a light turning on in a dark room. It illuminates the path, it shows you what is real and what is just your mind projecting fears into your present. Awareness also allows you to see patterns. Maybe every time you get a critical email, your thoughts spiral into panic. Maybe every time someone cancels plans, you immediately think, they don't like me. By being aware, by catching these automatic reactions, you start to see the story your mind keeps telling itself. You start to realize, this isn't reality, it's my interpretation, my projection. And when you see that, you are no longer a prisoner of your own mind. Awareness is not passive. It is an active, conscious act of reclaiming your power. Picture waking up in the morning. Before your feet even touch the floor, your mind starts listing all the things that could go wrong today. Awareness is the moment you pause, take a deep breath, and say, okay, I see you, mind. Thank you for showing up. I am choosing what I focus on today. Suddenly, you are no longer being dragged along by anxious thoughts. You are steering your day. Let me share a story from a friend's life. She used to replay past mistakes every single night. She would lie awake, questioning every word she had spoken, every action she had taken, imagining consequences that might never come. She thought overthinking was just a part of her personality, something she had to live with. Until one night, she caught herself mid-thought and asked, am I solving a real problem right now, or am I just imagining one? That pause, that tiny act of awareness, changed everything. She started practicing this daily. Every time a thought tried to pull her into a spiral, she paused, acknowledged it, and chose a different focus. It wasn't easy at first. The mind fights when you try to regain control. It wants to spin, to worry, to create scenarios that never exist. But the more she practiced awareness, the faster she noticed the spirals before they grew too big. Over time, she realized something extraordinary. Her mind no longer had power over her. She had the power. Awareness gave her the space between stimulus and response, the space where freedom lives. Think about your own life. How many hours have been stolen from you by thoughts that were never real, by fears that existed only in your imagination? Awareness gives you a pause, a chance to breathe, to reset, to reclaim that time. It is like stepping out of a storm into calm sunlight. Awareness teaches you to ask the questions that matter. Is this thought true? Is it useful? Does it deserve my energy? When you start asking these questions consistently, you notice a shift. Life becomes lighter, decisions become easier, and fear loses its grip. Awareness also teaches compassion for yourself. The moment you notice your mind spinning is the moment you stop blaming yourself. It's the moment you realize that overthinking is not a character flaw, it is a habit, a reflex. And habits, no matter how entrenched, can be changed. Awareness is the doorway to change. The key to freedom, the first step in mastering your mind, your emotions, and ultimately your life. Have you ever noticed how sometimes your mind treats tiny problems like mountains? Maybe someone cuts you off in traffic, and suddenly your entire morning feels ruined. Maybe a colleague misses a deadline, and immediately your thoughts race into panic. What if this ruins everything? Maybe a friend cancels plans at the last minute, and your mind starts spinning, imagining that they no longer care about you. The truth is, most of the things we spend our energy on are not nearly as urgent or important as we imagine. The key to peace, clarity, and action is knowing what matters most. When you truly know your priorities, your mind develops a filter. This filter acts like a protective shield, allowing only the things that truly deserve your attention to pass through. Everything else falls away, and suddenly life feels simpler, lighter, and infinitely more manageable. Let's picture this in everyday life. Imagine you're preparing dinner after a long day at work. Your child spills juice on the floor, your partner reminds you of an unpaid bill, and your phone is buzzing with emails from work. Without priorities, all of these things feel urgent, all of them scream for attention at once, and your mind spirals. Now imagine that before reacting, you pause and ask yourself a simple question: does this matter in 5 days, 5 months, or 5 years? The juice on the floor. Maybe it only matters today. The unpaid bill. You can pay it online tomorrow. The emails. Only some actually require urgent attention. Suddenly, your mind realizes that not every problem is equal. You start to respond with calm instead of panic, with focus instead of chaos. In that pause, you are practicing mastery. Here's another example. Imagine you're at work and your boss criticizes a report you submitted. Your initial instinct might be to panic, feel embarrassed, or obsess over every tiny detail for hours or even days. But if you ask yourself the question, does this matter in 5 days, 5 months, or 5 years? You realize that a small correction today does not define your entire career. It becomes a learning opportunity rather than a disaster. Your priorities filter out the noise, and you respond with precision and grace. I remember a friend telling me about her own experience. She had a habit of overthinking every disagreement she had with her partner. If he said something she didn't like, she would replay it endlessly in her mind, imagining arguments that never happened. It consumed her energy, her sleep, her happiness. One day, she decided to test a new habit. Every time she felt triggered, she asked herself, will this matter next week, next month, next year? She found that 90% of her worries didn't. The arguments she imagined never happened. The words she dwelled on faded in importance, and she started to respond with understanding rather than fear. Her mind became lighter because she had learned to separate the important from the trivial. Knowing what matters most is not about ignoring responsibilities or pretending problems don't exist. It's about clarity, about recognizing which hills are worth climbing and which are simply bumps in the road. When you filter your mind through priorities, even decisions that once felt like mountains shrink into manageable steps. Imagine standing at the base of a huge mountain. Without perspective, it looks impossible, terrifying, and endless. Now imagine breaking that mountain into a series of small hills, each one manageable, each one achievable. This is exactly what happens in your mind when you clarify what truly matters. Let me share another example from daily life. Think about social media. Every day, we scroll through a flood of news, opinions, images, and messages. Without a filter, your mind reacts to every single thing: anger at an injustice, envy at a friend's success, worry about a trending disaster. But when you apply the filter of priorities and ask yourself, does this really impact my life or my growth? Most of it falls away. You conserve your energy for what truly matters: your family, your health, your goals, your personal growth. A young man I know used to stress endlessly about fitting in at work, worrying whether his colleagues liked him or whether he said the right thing at meetings. His mind treated approval as urgent, immediate, life or death. One evening, a mentor asked him a simple question: will this matter in 5 days, 5 months, 5 years? The young man realized that most of his worries were irrelevant. No one remembered the awkward comment from 2 weeks ago. No one judged his minor mistakes for more than a day. From that day, he started applying the same filter to every situation. The relief was immediate. His mind stopped racing, his confidence grew, and his focus sharpened. Knowing what matters most also allows you to act decisively. Overthinking thrives when your mind cannot separate the important from the trivial. When you know your priorities, you make decisions with clarity. If it is important, you engage fully. If it is trivial, you let it go. A mother I once met shared how this changed her life. She used to be consumed by guilt over small parenting decisions. Should she let her child watch TV today? Should she buy organic groceries? Should she organize every play date perfectly? She realized that in the grand scheme of life, these decisions didn't define her child's happiness or her effectiveness as a parent. She focused on what mattered: presence, love, guidance, and example. Everything else fell away. She described the peace she felt as a lightness in the chest that she never knew existed. Knowing what matters most is like putting on a pair of mental glasses that reveal reality clearly. Suddenly, what once seemed overwhelming is manageable. The noise disappears, and you hear your own voice, your intuition, your guidance. It's in that clarity that action becomes natural, calm, and confident. Even in relationships, this principle works. When you know what matters most, you stop reacting to every word, every gesture, every perceived slight. You focus on trust, communication, and understanding. The petty arguments, misunderstandings, and imagined slights lose their power. You conserve your energy for connection, growth, and love. This filter transforms every aspect of life. Work becomes less stressful, relationships become more meaningful, and your mind, once chaotic, becomes your ally rather than your enemy. Every small decision, every reaction, every thought is weighed against what truly matters. It is in this practice that overthinking loses its grip and your life becomes simpler, lighter, and more purposeful. Have you ever noticed how, in the quiet moments, your mind starts questioning everything you do? Maybe you are about to speak up in a meeting, or make a decision about a relationship, or even choose which path to take in life, and suddenly every possible doubt starts whispering in your ear. What if you fail? What if you make the wrong choice? What if people judge you? These doubts can feel heavy, relentless, and real, but here's the truth. You already have everything you need to make the right decision. You already have the tools, the instincts, the experiences, and the wisdom inside you. The moment you start trusting yourself, overthinking begins to lose its power. Let's take a moment and reflect on a simple example from daily life. Imagine you are cooking a meal for the first time. The recipe is complex. As you stir the pot, your mind might say, maybe I should have followed the instructions more carefully. Or, what if it turns out wrong? But deep down, your hands, your senses, and your past experience in cooking guide you. You instinctively know the right amount of spice, the right time to flip the food, the right texture to aim for. Trusting yourself in that moment means acknowledging that your instincts, honed through every small action in life, are enough to carry you through. You don't need endless second guessing. Trusting yourself is also about recognizing the wisdom in your past experiences. Think about every challenge you've ever faced, Every time you overcame a difficulty, every decision that led you to where you are today has given you insight. You may have failed in the past, you may have stumbled, but those experiences are the compass guiding you. They are proof that your instincts can be trusted. I remember a friend telling me about her experience at a new job. She was offered a position that sounded prestigious, but her gut felt uneasy. Her mind started spinning with doubts. Maybe I'm overreacting, or what if I regret saying no? She paused, took a deep breath, and listened to her inner voice. She trusted herself, declined the offer, and later found a position that aligned perfectly with her values and growth. If she had ignored her gut, she would have been trapped in a path that wasn't right for her. Trusting yourself is also about acknowledging your values. Your instincts are deeply connected to what matters to you. When a decision aligns with your values, your inner self feels a subtle pull, a quiet confidence that grows stronger the more you listen. Every time you doubt that pull, overthinking steps in. Every time you honor it, clarity and peace replace chaos. Think about everyday moments where self-trust makes a difference. You're shopping for a gift for someone, and your mind says, should I choose something more expensive, something trendier, something that will impress? But deep down, you know what will truly touch them. You pick it, confident in your choice, and they love it. That's the power of trusting yourself in small moments, and it multiplies in bigger ones. Trusting yourself also means forgiving yourself for mistakes. Self-trust is not about being perfect. It's about understanding that even when you make a misstep, your instincts have guided you the best they could at that moment, and that you can learn and adjust. A young man I know once started a small business. He doubted himself constantly, fearing failure. Every minor setback felt catastrophic. Then he learned to pause and say, I made this choice with the best knowledge and instinct I had. Each time he did, his confidence grew, his decision-making improved, and his business began to thrive. When you doubt yourself, you hand over control of your life to fear, to anxiety, and to overthinking. When you trust yourself, you reclaim that control. You become the authority in your own life, the captain of your ship, the decision-maker who moves with clarity, calm, and confidence. Imagine you're driving on a highway in unfamiliar territory. Your mind is nervous. Should I have taken the other exit? What if I get lost? But your past experiences driving, your understanding of maps, your instincts about turns, all quietly guide you. You follow your inner guidance, and you reach your destination safely. Self-trust is like that GPS inside you, often ignored, but always accurate when you listen. Trust yourself in relationships, too. When someone treats you with disrespect or inconsistency, your instincts sense it. Your values signal, this doesn't feel right. If you ignore that inner voice, overthinking takes over, analyzing, rationalizing, and imagining scenarios that create pain. If you trust yourself, you respond with clarity, boundaries, and strength, and your mind is free from endless doubt. Consider a student preparing for an exam. They've studied, practiced, and put in the effort. The night before, panic sets in. Their mind screams, what if I fail? But the moment they trust themselves, trust their preparation, their understanding, their past successes, they sit confidently in the exam room and perform at their best. Self-trust transforms fear into focus, anxiety into action. Even in leadership, trusting yourself is crucial. Making decisions for a team, a project, or your own path requires courage. Doubt slows action, kills creativity, and paralyzes progress. Trusting yourself allows decisive, confident, and inspired action that others naturally follow. I remember an entrepreneur telling me how she had to make a major hiring decision under pressure. Her mind was full of what ifs, but she paused and asked herself, what does my experience tell me? What does my gut say? She trusted herself, made the choice, and it turned out to be one of the best decisions for her growing company. Trusting yourself also inspires others to trust you. When your confidence is rooted in self-belief, people notice, they follow, and opportunities open. Every choice, every small step, every instinct you honor builds your trust muscle, just like exercising your body strengthens it. The more you practice, the stronger your inner guidance becomes. Trusting yourself is not a one-time act. It's a habit, a mindset, a lifestyle. It starts with small choices. Trusting what to eat, how to respond, which path to take, what to say, and grows into bigger decisions that shape your life. It is knowing deep in your core, that no matter how uncertain the world feels, your instincts, experiences, and values are guiding you wisely. When you trust yourself, overthinking loses its playground because your mind no longer needs to question every move. You act, you decide, you move forward with courage, clarity, and peace. Have you ever noticed how we stop ourselves from moving forward because we are waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect circumstances? Maybe you are sitting on a project at work, waiting to start because you feel it has to be flawless from the first word, the first idea, the first step. Maybe you are about to speak your truth to someone you care about, but your mind keeps saying, wait until you say it perfectly, or it will all go wrong. Maybe you are scrolling through your creative ideas on your phone or your computer, but you hesitate to post, to share, to act, because nothing ever seems good enough. Perfectionism is one of the most common traps of overthinking, and it can be deadly if left unchecked. It whispers in your ear, making you believe that every move must be precise, every word exact, every action flawless. But here's the truth, and it's the truth that can change everything. Almost nothing ever goes perfectly, and most of it will still be okay. Life is not designed to be perfect, it's designed to be lived. Every time we embrace imperfection, we release the heavy chains of overthinking. Let me give you a simple example from daily life. Imagine a young woman baking a cake for the first time. She reads the recipe carefully, measures everything with precision, but when she takes the cake out of the oven, it's slightly cracked, a little uneven, not the magazine, perfect cake she imagined. Her first instinct might be disappointment. She might think, failed, I ruined it. But then she pauses, takes a deep breath, and tastes the cake. It is delicious. It may not look perfect, but it brings joy, satisfaction, and nourishment. This small moment illustrates a bigger truth: good enough is often enough. You don't need perfection to create impact, to experience happiness, or to move forward. Perfectionism makes us pause, wait, and doubt, but imperfection encourages action. Think about a young man learning to play guitar. His fingers stumble on the strings, his timing is off, his chords crack, but he keeps playing. Every mistake is a step forward, every wrong note is a lesson. If he waited until he played flawlessly, he would never perform, he would never experience the joy of music, he would never improve. Embracing imperfection is about giving yourself permission to be human. It is about saying, I am allowed to make mistakes, I am allowed to be learning, and I am allowed to grow. It is about freeing your mind from the endless spiral of overthinking, because once you accept that perfect is not required, hesitation disappears, fear dissolves, and confidence emerges naturally. Let me share another story. A friend of mine wanted to start her own online business. She had countless ideas, researched for months, and kept postponing her launch because nothing felt perfect. The website had to be flawless, the logo had to be professional, every marketing message had to be polished. Her mind was trapped in a cycle of overthinking. One day, she realized that if she waited for perfection, she would never start. She launched with what she had: a simple website, a logo she designed herself, and a message straight from her heart. The first few weeks were messy. She made mistakes, the website had errors, some orders got delayed, but she kept adjusting. By embracing imperfection, she learned, she grew, and her business began to thrive. What was imperfect at first became perfect in its own way because she acted, she experimented, she adapted. Everyday life is full of these moments. Perhaps you want to write, paint, speak, or share an idea with someone, but your mind tells you to wait until you are ready. The reality is, you will never feel completely ready, and waiting for that moment only fuels overthinking. Embracing imperfection means starting where you are, with what you have, and letting action create growth. It is like walking into a dark room. You don't need to see everything clearly to take the first step. You just need enough light to move forward. Every small, imperfect step illuminates more than hesitation ever could. Consider relationships. We often overthink how to communicate perfectly, how to act flawlessly, how to avoid mistakes with our loved ones. Perfectionism convinces us that any flaw will destroy connection. Embracing imperfection allows us to speak from our hearts, to admit when we are wrong, to laugh at our mistakes, and to build bonds based on authenticity rather than fear. A husband might burn dinner, spill juice on the floor, forget a small task, But if he approaches the moment with humor, openness, and sincerity, the relationship deepens. Imperfection fosters connection because humans connect with realness, not flawless performance. Embracing imperfection is also essential for creativity. Artists, writers, musicians, entrepreneurs, and innovators are not perfect. They experiment, they fail, they adjust, and they try again. Imagine if every famous invention, every beloved book, every groundbreaking idea had waited for perfection. The world would have fewer discoveries, fewer songs, fewer stories. Overthinking thrives when we demand perfection because it creates paralysis. Imperfection thrives when we act, learn, and grow because it allows momentum. Consider yourself on a treadmill of thoughts. Perfectionism makes you run in place, exhausting energy, seeing no progress. Embracing imperfection steps off the treadmill, starts walking purposefully, and discovers movement, growth, and joy with every step. Every day, opportunities are waiting. Invitations to try, to speak, to act, to create, to share. If we demand perfection before stepping forward, we miss those moments. Imperfection is not a flaw, it is the doorway to progress, experience, learning, and fulfillment. It is the permission to take risks, to be bold, to fail, and to rise again. Think of a child learning to ride a bicycle. The first attempts are shaky, full of falls, scraped knees, and laughter. If the child waited until balance was perfect, the bicycle would never move, and the thrill of riding would never be felt. Embracing imperfection allows us to pedal through fear, wobble with courage, and eventually glide with confidence. Every action taken, even imperfectly, builds skill, confidence, and momentum. The mind stops spinning when it sees that action is more important than flawlessness, that learning is more valuable than error, free attempts, that progress is more meaningful than perfection, and that growth is inevitable when you give yourself permission to be human. Have you ever noticed how easy it is for your mind to run wild when faced with a decision? Maybe you are staring at your phone, unsure whether to send a message, and your mind begins to replay every possible scenario. Maybe you are at work, staring at a report, thinking about every way it could go wrong, imagining every criticism before it even happens. Maybe you are lying in bed at night, thinking about a conversation from hours ago, wondering if you said the right thing. Overthinking thrives when your mind has unlimited time to spin. It stretches minutes into hours, hours into days, until the weight of imagined problems feels unbearable. This is why setting time limits is so powerful. When you give your mind a boundary, a container for thought, suddenly overthinking has nowhere to hide. It forces you to focus, to decide, and to act. Imagine you have a decision to make, whether to accept a new job, whether to confront someone, whether to start a project you've been putting off. Without a time limit, your thoughts stretch endlessly. What if I fail? What if I succeed and it's not what I expect? What if people judge me? What if I regret this choice? But if you say, I will think about this for 15 minutes and then I will act, something extraordinary happens. Your brain switches from endless speculation to focused evaluation. You start prioritizing facts, listening to intuition, weighing pros and cons with clarity. Time limits do not restrict you, they free you. Think about training your body in the gym. You don't lift weights all day, every day without rest. You set reps, you set intervals, you measure your effort. In the same way, you can train your mind, discipline your thinking. Decide, I will allow myself to consider this, and then I will act. Every time you practice this, your brain learns that it does not need to spiral into panic or doubt. Your mind starts respecting the boundaries you set. Let me give you a real-life example. A young woman I know was preparing for a major presentation at work. She kept rewriting slides, imagining every possible question, staying up late to practice again and again. Her mind refused to stop. Finally, a mentor told her, give yourself 20 minutes to prepare your response for questions, then move on. You can't control everything, but you can control your preparation. She followed the advice. She set the timer, focused fully for those 20 minutes, and then let go. When the presentation happened, she was calm, confident, and clear. By setting a time limit, she reclaimed her mental energy, avoided exhaustion, and performed at her best. Consider another scenario. You are deciding whether to speak up in a meeting. The thought loops in your head endlessly. What if they disagree? What if I sound silly? What if I regret it? Instead of letting your mind spiral, imagine saying, I will think about this for 5 minutes, then I will speak my mind. In that 5-minute window, your brain organizes ideas, prioritizes points, and then you act. You break free from the trap of imagined fears. Everyday life is full of these moments. When choosing what to wear, when deciding what to cook, when responding to a text, when negotiating a deal, your mind often stretches small decisions into overwhelming dilemmas. Setting a timer allows clarity to emerge. You are no longer a slave to endless what-ifs. Imagine a student preparing for an exam. Without a plan, they sit staring at their notes for hours, cycling through every possible question, obsessing over topics they already know, doubting their memory. But if they decide, I will study this chapter for 30 minutes, suddenly the work becomes manageable. Focus replaces panic, progress replaces paralysis, and confidence grows naturally. Setting time limits is also a powerful tool for breaking procrastination. Overthinkers often delay action, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect alignment of circumstances. But perfection is an illusion, and delay feeds overthinking. When you say, I will spend 10 minutes planning, then start, you force action. Momentum begins and energy flows. It is in motion that clarity comes, not in endless speculation. Let me share another story. A young man wanted to start a fitness routine, but spent weeks researching exercises, diets, and supplements. Every day, he told himself he needed more information, more preparation. Finally, he set a simple rule: he would exercise for 20 minutes, starting that day, no excuses. He set a timer, followed through, and soon the habit became natural. His mind stopped overthinking because boundaries had been created. The timer became a guide, a motivator, a friend, and his life began to change. The beauty of time limits is that they transform thinking into discipline without pressure. It teaches the mind that action is more valuable than endless hesitation. You start seeing patterns, making faster decisions, and freeing mental energy for creativity, problem solving, and joy. Even in relationships, setting mental time limits works. When you feel upset with a partner, instead of ruminating for hours, imagine giving yourself 15 minutes to process your feelings, then addressing the situation calmly. This approach prevents arguments from escalating, encourages thoughtful communication, and protects your emotional well-being. The practice of setting time limits trains patience, focus, and confidence. It rewires the brain to respect boundaries, to prioritize action over endless speculation, and to trust that decisions made with clarity and purpose are enough. Imagine your thoughts as a river. Without banks, the water floods, spreads, and destroys. Time limits create banks for your river. Your thoughts flow within a structure, nourishing growth instead of chaos. Each decision becomes more precise, each action more confident, each day more productive. The more you practice this, the more freedom you feel. Overthinking shrinks because it cannot thrive within a timed container. Your mind becomes a tool, not a prison, and your life begins to move with purpose, focus, and energy. Every small decision becomes a chance to practice, to act, and to win. Everyday situations, from the simplest to the most complex, suddenly feel manageable because you have learned to harness the power of time. A young woman deciding what to say in a difficult conversation, a man choosing how to start his day, a student preparing for an exam, a professional facing a tough call. All of them can use time limits to reclaim mental energy, focus, and clarity. Each time you set a boundary, each time you honor a timer, each time you choose action over rumination, your mind becomes lighter, sharper, and unstoppable. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to get lost in what's missing, what's wrong, or what hasn't gone your way? Maybe you wake up in the morning, and the first thought is about the long list of things you need to do, the people you have to please, the mistakes from yesterday that you keep replaying. Maybe you are stuck in traffic, thinking about work, bills, or arguments, and every passing minute feels like a burden. The truth is, most of us spend more time focusing on what's wrong than on what's working, and that simple habit fuels overthinking. This is where gratitude comes in, and it is more powerful than most people realize. Practicing gratitude does not mean ignoring challenges or pretending life is perfect. It means consciously turning your attention toward what is working, what is good, and what brings even the smallest spark of joy. Imagine waking up, and instead of immediately thinking about what went wrong yesterday, you pause and notice the sunlight streaming through the window, the sound of birds outside, or the comfort of your bed. That simple shift rewires your mind. Gratitude redirects energy from fear and doubt to appreciation and clarity. Think about your morning coffee or tea. You might complain about the slow line at the cafe, the noise, or the cold weather, but what if you paused and truly savored that first sip? The warmth, the aroma, the flavor. Suddenly, your mind is no longer racing through worries. It is fully present, fully alive in the moment. Let me give you another example from daily life. A friend of mine was struggling with work stress, deadlines, and constant pressure. Every evening, she would replay conversations in her head, worrying about what she said or didn't say, imagining failures that never happened. One day, she started a small habit. Every night before bed, she wrote down 3 things she was grateful for. Sometimes it was simple: a colleague's smile, her favorite song on the radio, the taste of dinner she enjoyed. Within weeks, she noticed a change. Her mind stopped racing at night, her sleep improved, and even her perspective at work shifted. Gratitude rewires your brain to notice solutions instead of problems, opportunities instead of obstacles, and beauty instead of frustration. Think about relationships. How often do we focus on the things our loved ones do wrong, the little habits that irritate us, or the ways we feel unappreciated? Gratitude flips the script. When you take time to notice the small acts of kindness, the laughter shared, the support offered, the meals cooked, the words spoken, your mind stops spinning in criticism and doubt. It begins to notice what is right, what is nurturing, what is worth celebrating. Consider a parent who is exhausted, juggling work, children, and responsibilities. At first glance, it might feel overwhelming, unending, and stressful. But when that parent takes a moment to appreciate a child's hug, a partner's support, or a small success in the day, the energy shifts. Suddenly, the challenges are still there, but they feel manageable, and the mind is calmer. Gratitude acts as a lens through which life looks less chaotic and more abundant. Think about small daily conversations. Maybe a friend calls, and instead of thinking about how busy you are, how rushed, how inconvenient it is, you pause and feel grateful that someone reached out to connect, to share, to care. Suddenly, the call feels like a gift rather than a burden, and your energy shifts from stress to joy. A young man I know used to dwell on what he didn't have: career achievements, money, recognition, travel. His mind constantly compared himself to others, imagining failure, rejection, and inadequacy. One day, he started keeping a simple gratitude journal, writing down moments he appreciated: a kind word from a stranger, a completed project, a phone call with family, a laugh shared with friends. Within weeks, he noticed a remarkable difference. His mind stopped constantly worrying, his overthinking faded, and he felt more confident in himself and his decisions. Gratitude doesn't just change your perspective, it changes your brain. Science shows that focusing on what you are thankful for strengthens areas of the brain associated with happiness, reduces stress, and improves decision-making. It helps your mind notice solutions instead of problems and opportunities instead of obstacles. Consider your work environment. Maybe a project feels overwhelming, a boss seems critical, or a task seems impossible. If your focus is on gratitude, you notice the supportive colleagues, the skills you have to navigate challenges, the resources available, and the lessons hidden in difficulty. Suddenly, overthinking fades because your energy is aligned with possibility, not fear. Think about walking outside. Maybe the weather isn't perfect, traffic is slow, or someone cuts you off, and your mind is ready to spiral into irritation. Pause. Notice the cool air, the sound of leaves rustling, the feel of your feet on the pavement, the beauty in a neighbor's garden. Your mind shifts from what's wrong to what's present, and the energy of overthinking dissolves. Gratitude also teaches humility and perspective. When you focus on what is good, you recognize that life has offered countless gifts, many of which are often invisible in the rush of daily routine. Even challenges become easier to navigate when paired with gratitude because your mind sees them in the context of what is already working and what has already been overcome. Consider a student facing a difficult exam. The initial reaction might be panic. What if I fail? What if I forget everything? What if I disappoint someone? By practicing gratitude, acknowledging the hours already studied, the support of friends and teachers, the opportunity to learn, fear loses its grip, and clarity emerges. You begin to see solutions instead of problems, and your energy becomes aligned with action instead of rumination. Gratitude in daily life can be as simple as noticing a smile from a stranger, enjoying the taste of your favorite meal, appreciating the warmth of a morning shower, or feeling thankful for your own resilience in past challenges. These small moments accumulate, creating a mind that is calm, focused, and powerful. Even when life is imperfect, when challenges arise, when uncertainty looms, gratitude anchors your mind. It redirects energy from fear to clarity, from worry to presence, from paralysis to action. Every morning you wake up, you have countless reasons to be grateful, yet most of us ignore them, allowing the mind to focus on what is missing, what is wrong, what could go wrong. Practicing gratitude changes that pattern. It trains your mind to notice abundance instead of scarcity, solutions instead of problems, love instead of fear, growth instead of limitation. A simple daily habit, pausing, reflecting, writing, or even speaking gratitude, rewires your thoughts, your perspective, and your decisions. It stops overthinking in its tracks because it teaches your mind to focus on what matters, to value what exists, to celebrate progress, and to align energy with clarity and joy. Have you ever noticed how your mind can trap you in endless loops of thinking, imagining, and analyzing until every possible scenario feels heavier than it actually is? Maybe you are sitting at your desk, staring at a blank page, thinking about an important project, a life decision, or a conversation you need to have, and suddenly your thoughts start spinning. What if I fail? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I make a mistake? Overthinking loves waiting. It thrives on hesitation. It convinces you that if you just think a little longer, if you just plan a little more, if you just imagine every possible outcome, you will find the perfect answer. But here's the truth: perfect answers rarely exist. Clarity comes not from endless pondering, but from movement, from doing, from action. Imagine a young woman who has been dreaming of starting her own small business. She spends months imagining the perfect logo, the perfect website, the perfect marketing strategy. She reads books, takes courses, and even makes notes, but the business never launches. Every day she tells herself, "I'll start tomorrow once I'm ready." Meanwhile, the ideas in her head feel bigger than her courage. Then one day, she takes a tiny step. She writes a short paragraph introducing her product online, posts it, and waits. It's imperfect, it's small, but it exists. The response comes in: a friend comments, a stranger asks a question, a first order arrives. Suddenly, her mind realizes that the act of doing, even imperfectly, creates results that thinking alone cannot produce. Action shrinks overthinking because it replaces fear with evidence. It transforms what if into what is. Let's look at a simpler example. Imagine a student who has an essay to write. They sit staring at the screen, imagining every possible way it could go wrong. The introduction might be weak, the examples might be unconvincing, the teacher might not like it. The mind builds a mountain of anxiety that feels impossible to climb. Then they decide, "I will write just one paragraph." One. That small move forward changes everything. Suddenly, the essay begins to take shape. One paragraph turns into two, then three, then a complete draft. The mountain was never real. The action turned it into a manageable path. Action also teaches you about your own capabilities. The mind often convinces you that a challenge is bigger than it is, that failure is inevitable, that you are not ready. But the moment you act, even in a small way, you gather information, test your limits, and realize that you are stronger, more resourceful, and more capable than you imagined. Think about a young man preparing to ask someone out on a date. He spends days imagining every possible response, rehearsing every word, overthinking until his chest feels tight and his mind is exhausted. Finally, he decides to send a simple message: "Hey, want to grab coffee sometime?" He hits send and immediately feels a sense of relief. Action dissolves the imagined fear. The result, whatever it is, now exists in reality instead of his mind. Even if the outcome isn't perfect, the act of moving forward teaches courage, confidence, and clarity. Consider everyday moments: getting out of bed to exercise, starting a conversation with a colleague, beginning a home project, applying for a new job. In each case, overthinking can convince you to wait, to plan, to imagine endlessly. Action breaks that spell. Even tiny steps, like making a phone call, writing a short note, or doing a single push-up, create momentum. Momentum is the antidote to overthinking. It tells your mind, "I can move, I can try, I can handle what comes next." I remember a friend telling me about how she was paralyzed by overthinking before giving a presentation. She rehearsed every word, imagined every question, and worried about every reaction. The night before, she decided to take action in a small way. She wrote the opening sentence of her speech and practiced it aloud. Then she went to bed. The next morning, the speech flowed naturally. The act of starting, even imperfectly, shifted her energy, her confidence, and her clarity. Action turns fear into experience. It transforms hypothetical problems into real learning opportunities. Imagine if all great achievements waited for perfect circumstances. No books would be written, no businesses launched, no paintings painted, no careers started. Action, even small action, is what separates dreamers from doers. Think about learning a new skill like cooking or playing an instrument. Endless reading about techniques will never replace the knowledge gained by trying. Mistakes are inevitable, yes, but each mistake teaches something that thinking alone never could. The act of moving forward dissolves anxiety because your mind now works with real feedback instead of imagined scenarios. Even in relationships, action matters. If you are struggling to express your feelings, overthinking every word and pause can keep you stuck for weeks. The moment you act, speak honestly, share a thought, the situation begins to
Real.
move. Clarity
You
replaces
are
doubt. Momentum replaces hesitation. Your mind begins to trust you again because you proved that you can act despite fear. Consider a parent trying to build better habits with their children. Thinking about perfect parenting, imagining every possible challenge, and trying to anticipate every mistake can be exhausting. Taking action, even in small ways, reading a story, playing a game, creates progress that no amount of worry could ever produce. The key is to start. One step, one decision, one small move forward. The mind will follow. Confidence builds from evidence, not imagination. Clarity emerges from doing, not thinking. Every day offers countless opportunities to practice this, to speak up, to create, to begin, to try, to move forward. The smallest action can ignite momentum. It can shrink overthinking into a manageable pattern, transforming fear into learning, hesitation into courage, and doubt into clarity. Every person you admire, every story of success, every example of progress began with action. Not perfect action, not fully informed action, not perfectly timed action, just action. When you embrace this, when you begin before you feel ready, when you take even tiny steps toward your goals, your mind stops running in endless circles. Overthinking loses its playground. Energy that was trapped in worry becomes fuel for forward movement. The simplest lesson becomes profound. The path to clarity, growth, and peace always begins with action. Have you ever noticed how much of our stress, our sleepless nights, our constant mental chatter comes from wanting everything to be predictable, to have clear answers, to feel certain about the next step? Maybe you are deciding whether to take a new job, start a relationship, move to a new city, or pursue a dream, and every thought spins into what ifs. What if I fail? What if I make the wrong choice? What if this changes everything? Overthinking thrives in this space of resistance. It grows stronger the more we demand certainty, the more we fight the unknown, the more we try to control outcomes that are simply not ours to control. Uncertainty is not the enemy. Uncertainty is life itself. The moment we stop fighting it, the moment we stop demanding that every question has a clear answer, our mind begins to relax and overthinking loses its grip. Imagine a young woman considering a move to a new city for work. She has a stable routine, friends nearby, and a life she knows well. The opportunity is exciting but uncertain. Her mind races. What if I don't fit in? What if I hate the new place? What if it disrupts my life? The more she tries to control what she cannot predict, the more anxiety grows. Then she pauses and asks herself a simple question. What if I embrace the uncertainty? What if I see this as an adventure instead of a risk? That moment changes everything. Suddenly, her mind relaxes. Uncertainty is no longer a prison, but a playground. She begins to imagine possibilities rather than dangers. She sees learning, growth, and discovery instead of fear. Even small daily examples reveal the power of embracing uncertainty. Imagine standing in a grocery store aisle, deciding what to cook for dinner. Maybe you don't know exactly what to make. Your mind might spiral into overthinking. What if they don't like it? What if I burn it? What if it's not healthy enough? Instead of letting your thoughts spin, imagine saying, I will choose something and figure it out as I go. You pick ingredients, improvise a recipe, taste as you cook, adjust flavors. By embracing the uncertainty of improvisation, you create a meal, you gain confidence, and your mind stops racing. Think about relationships. Every conversation with a loved one, every interaction, every moment of connection is uncertain. We cannot predict exactly what the other person will say or how they will react. Overthinking convinces us to rehearse endlessly, to analyze past conversations, and to anticipate every word. Embracing uncertainty means speaking from the heart, listening with openness, and accepting that outcomes cannot be fully controlled. Suddenly, communication becomes authentic instead of stressful, joyful instead of exhausting. Consider a young man preparing for a major presentation. He cannot predict every question, every reaction, every critique. Overthinking tempts him to memorize scripts, rehearse every line, and imagine every scenario. But the moment he embraces the uncertainty, trusting his knowledge, trusting his ability to think on his feet, trusting the flow of the moment, he finds a calm confidence. Uncertainty becomes a space for creativity and problem-solving rather than fear. Even in personal growth, embracing uncertainty is a game changer. Maybe you are learning a new skill, like painting, dancing, or coding. The first attempts are always uncertain. The mind wants to predict the outcome, to control every move. Overthinking makes you pause, doubt, and sometimes give up. But if you accept that uncertainty is part of learning, that mistakes are natural, and that progress unfolds through trial and error, suddenly the process becomes enjoyable. Your mind stops resisting, and growth happens effortlessly. A friend I know wanted to start a freelance career. She spent months worrying about clients, pricing, deadlines, and rejection. She imagined every negative scenario and tried to control outcomes she could not predict. One day, she decided to embrace the uncertainty. She submitted proposals without knowing the results, started projects without perfection, and experimented with approaches she had never tried. Each uncertain step taught her lessons she could never have learned from planning alone. She gained clients' confidence and freedom she hadn't imagined. Embracing uncertainty also teaches resilience. Life is unpredictable. Accidents, opportunities, surprises, setbacks, they happen to everyone. Overthinking grows when we resist, when we demand life conform to our expectations. But when we accept that we cannot predict or control everything, we develop adaptability, flexibility, and courage. Imagine driving on a road you've never been on. Perhaps the detour feels stressful, perhaps the traffic is heavier than expected. Overthinking tempts you to panic, to imagine being lost forever. But if you embrace uncertainty, trusting your instincts, using your knowledge, staying present, you navigate the road safely and maybe even discover a beautiful view or a hidden gem along the way. Uncertainty becomes a playground because it invites curiosity. Instead of fearing what might go wrong, you begin to ask, what can I learn from this? What new experience can this bring? How can I grow through the unknown? This mindset transforms challenges into opportunities. Every decision, every interaction, every step becomes a chance to explore rather than a source of anxiety. Think about parenting. No parent knows exactly what will happen each day. No parent can predict how a child will respond to guidance, discipline, or encouragement. Overthinking tempts parents to control everything, plan every moment, and anticipate every problem. Embracing uncertainty means acting with love, presence, and flexibility, trusting that mistakes can be corrected and lessons can be learned. It creates calm, confidence, and joy instead of fear, guilt, and worry. Even in health and wellness, embracing uncertainty is critical. We cannot predict every illness, every injury, or every outcome of our choices. Overthinking convinces us to worry endlessly, imagining worst-case scenarios. But accepting uncertainty allows us to make choices based on what we can control: nutrition, movement, sleep, self-care, and let go of what we cannot. The mind relaxes, and energy is freed for positive action rather than fear. Every great achievement, every story of resilience, every journey of growth involves uncertainty. The difference between people who overthink and those who thrive is not that they have perfect answers. It is that they have embraced the unknown and used it as a canvas to create, explore, and grow. Uncertainty is life's natural rhythm. Resisting it drains energy. Accepting it restores power. A young woman about to start a new relationship realized she could not control the other person's feelings, reactions, or future. Instead of overthinking, she chose to embrace uncertainty, enjoying each moment, listening, learning, and engaging fully. The result was deeper connection, authentic communication, and peace in her heart. Embracing uncertainty is not giving up, not being careless, not ignoring consequences. It is choosing to move forward with curiosity, courage, and trust in yourself and life. It is saying, I may not know what happens, but I will engage fully, learn deeply, and grow endlessly. Daily life is full of unknowns, from career decisions to conversations, from travel to friendships, from learning to creating. When you stop resisting, when you embrace uncertainty, your mind relaxes, fear diminishes, and overthinking loses its playground. The unknown transforms from a threat into a space for possibility, a canvas for growth, and a playground for courage. So, let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a life where your mind is no longer a battlefield of thoughts, doubts, and endless what-ifs. Imagine waking up in the morning, and instead of immediately thinking about all the ways your day could go wrong, you feel a sense of calm, clarity, and purpose. Imagine stepping out the door, walking into the world with your head held high, knowing that no matter what happens, you have the tools, the mindset, and the courage to handle it. Your mind is no longer a prison, holding you hostage with fear and hesitation. It is a launch pad, ready to propel you toward your goals, your dreams, and your highest self. This isn't some far-off fantasy. It's possible, it's tangible, and it begins the moment you decide to take control. Think about a person who has always wanted to speak up at work, but hesitation kept them quiet for years. Every idea that came to mind, every solution they had, every perspective was buried under fear. What if they sound foolish? What if no one listens? Then one day, they decide to act differently. They choose to speak once, even if it's imperfect. The moment they do, something shifts. The energy changes. People listen. Confidence grows. They realize that overthinking never protected them. It only delayed their own success. The same principle applies to every area of life: relationships, health, creativity, career, personal growth. When you step forward with clarity, with courage, with awareness, your mind stops running in endless loops, and overthinking fades because it simply has no space to survive. Imagine a young woman deciding to start her own business. She spends weeks analyzing every market trend, questioning every decision, imagining all the ways she could fail. Overthinking is holding her hostage, draining her energy, stealing her joy. Then she makes a choice. She will start today. She takes one small action, sending an email, posting an idea, making a call, and instantly the momentum begins. The fear remains, but it no longer dominates. She realizes that action, clarity, and trust in herself are more powerful than endless analysis. This is how freedom begins. Picture a parent juggling work, children, and responsibilities. Every decision seems monumental. What if I choose the wrong words? What if I don't have enough time? What if I disappoint someone? The weight of overthinking can be suffocating. Then they pause, breathe, and decide, I will focus on what matters right now. I will give my attention to this moment. I will act with presence, not perfection. Suddenly, tasks that felt impossible become manageable, interactions become meaningful, and the mind begins to feel lighter, freer, and more powerful. Every step you take, no matter how small, teaches your brain that it can trust itself. It begins to see decisions as opportunities, challenges as adventures, and mistakes as lessons rather than failures. Imagine someone who wants to improve their health but spends weeks analyzing diets, exercises, and routines. They are caught in a spiral of research, planning, and hesitation. Then they choose one small action: a 10-minute walk, a healthy breakfast, a glass of water. That one step sparks momentum, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, a new pattern forms. The mind relaxes because it is acting, not spinning endlessly in fear and doubt. Clarity grows because action always produces results that thinking alone cannot. Think about relationships. How often do we hesitate to share how we feel, worried about how the other person will respond, imagining worst-case scenarios, rehearsing every word? Overthinking convinces us that silence is safer. Yet the moment we speak, even imperfectly, the energy shifts. Honesty creates connection, authenticity creates trust, and fear loses its power. Your mind begins to understand that overthinking is no longer necessary because you are capable of navigating reality, not just imagining it. Life is full of these opportunities: every conversation, every choice, every decision. Awareness, priorities, trust, imperfection, time limits, gratitude, action, and embracing uncertainty. These 8 keys are the toolkit for freedom. Each one, when applied slowly but surely, dismantles overthinking, leaving you with clarity, confidence, and inner power. Imagine waking up tomorrow and applying them. You pause before reacting, noticing what truly matters. You set boundaries for your thoughts, your time, and your energy. You trust yourself, knowing that mistakes are part of growth. You act even when unsure. You embrace the unknown with curiosity rather than fear. Your mind stops spinning endlessly because it has structure, direction, and purpose. Imagine walking through your day and noticing how light you feel, how much energy you have for what truly matters, how clear your thinking is. Every decision feels easier because you trust yourself. Every interaction becomes more authentic because you are present. Every opportunity, even the challenging ones, becomes a chance to grow and to shine. The power to stop overthinking does not come from a book, a seminar, or someone else. It comes from you. The moment you decide to apply these principles, to take control, to step into your own clarity, the shift begins. It is not instant, and it is not magical, it is mastery. Mastery over your thoughts, your fears, your doubts, and your hesitation. Think about a young professional sitting at their desk, thinking about all the ways a project could go wrong. Instead of spiraling, they pause, prioritize, act, and reflect. Clarity emerges. Results happen. They realize that overthinking was never protection, it was hesitation in disguise. The same applies to you. The freedom, the clarity, the lightness you crave is available right now. Every great choice you've made, every brave action you've taken, started with one small step. You do not need perfect conditions, complete certainty, or anyone's permission. All you need is the decision to take control of your mind, to trust yourself, and to act. Imagine how life would feel if your mind were no longer your enemy but your ally, if thoughts became tools instead of chains, if clarity replaced doubt, and action replaced fear. Imagine how powerful, how free, how alive you could feel.